Hello parents and students, this is Mr. Dalia. Welcome to the 2020 virtual open house because that's the world we're living in right now. Woo! I teach world history and I do now have one section of US history. That is my email at the bottom if you need to get in touch with me. Of course you can also do it through vPortal and then Focus Gradebook, and there's a link to my email right there. Alright, so the big question is, what are we learning in these classes? Well, basically what we're learning, it's already laid out. It's in the Sunshine State Standards, so pretty much that's it. Of course, there we do a lot of reading in social studies classes, so a lot of reading and a lot of writing. We learn how to do research, study. We're going to learn how to cite evidence. We do a lot of what are called DBQs, or document-based questioning, where we read primary sources because they typically are old and have a lot of kind of complex language. We learn how to break down that language, what it means. We analyze that, and then usually we'll write an essay or paragraphs or journal entries about it. Alright, so a question I always get is, Mr. Dalia, why do I have to learn about the stupid stuff that happened in the past? And so basically the reason why you have to study social studies is because you need to learn about the history of our country and our world and about our government. Because if you don't know that stuff, you're going to easily be taken advantage of and you're not going to make good voting decisions. We all know there's a lot of low and no information voters out there, and we want to raise this generation of students to not be like that. So it's going to be really important to learn so that you can make good voting decisions. And we know a lot of people don't vote because they just don't really know anything about government or about history. So they really don't feel like they can really make any good decisions. When a politician says something, they don't really understand really anything, the history behind it, or whether it's a good or a bad point of view. So that's why we learn about social studies. Alright, so every day when students come to class, they need to have a binder with dividers in it for each subject. Some students use the folder system. I'm not as big of a fan of that, but if they want to have folders for each subject, that's okay, I guess. They also need lined paper because we do use loose leaf paper at times. In my class, they can use pen. I know some teachers are anti-pen. I find it easier to read, but only blue or black pen. No other colors, and they can use pencil as well, of course, but only those two colors. If anything is turned in, written in anything else, like green, purple, highlighter, Sharpie, I've seen it all. If anything's written in anything else, it'll be handed back and it'll have to be redone. They also should have some colored pencils or crayons. We do color in some maps and stuff on occasion. I also definitely encourage an agenda or planner. That's highly recommended because what I always find every year is if you say, okay, finish this for homework, a lot of students don't remember to do it because they don't write it down. They don't have any kind of system. So some kind of a system where they can write down homework and upcoming test projects, all that stuff is really important because like I always tell my students, if I didn't have a calendar and put things in there, I would never remember, half the stuff that I had to do. So it's important they learn that now, and that can carry them, through high school and if they go to college and jobs and all that stuff. So it's really important they have some kind of a system where they can keep track of what's coming up so that they remember to do it. All right, it's time to go over the expectations. All students are expected to complete all of the work on their own unless told otherwise with 100% effort. So it's important that they come to school every day and they try their best. That's all that we can ask, is you come every day and you try your best. You need to arrive to class on time. Being late or missing a lot of class in school, that just creates a backlog of work. You're not really getting the material and it's hard to catch up. When you come to class, it's important that you bring a good attitude, come with a desire to learn. When you enter the class, you should begin work immediately and quietly. When you enter class, it's not social time. You sit in your assigned seat and you get to work. You make sure you remain on task at all times. If the teacher gives you a direction, if I give you a direction, you follow it immediately the first time. One of the biggest things is to stay organized. As we talked about, I talked about having a binder with dividers for all of your different classes. Make sure you're putting your work away in the correct section of your binder so that you can stay organized. Every year there's a bunch of students that just shove everything into their backpacks, and eventually, that results in a parent-teacher conference because the student is failing, and they empty their backpack out and there's all their work all crumpled up. So it's important that you stay organized from day one. It's a lot harder to get organized if you become disorganized than to just stay organized every day. Take that 30 seconds to put your work away properly. This goes right along with the next thing is keep up with your work. If you get behind, you have a mountain to climb, and at a certain point it gets to be almost impossible. And I'm not the kind of teacher that you don't come up to me the day before the quarter ends and say, hey, can I get on my work? I didn't do most of my work, but I'd like to do it now. Come on. That's not fair to the other students, and you're not going to be able to do all your work in one night. So you got to do it on a daily basis. It's important that when they're at home, there's a designated time when they work and they stick to it. I know when I was a student, I came home, my parents said, you come home, you do your homework that you have to do, then you can do other stuff. You don't go outside and play. I wasn't allowed to go outside or play video games or do any of that stuff until I have my homework done. And that was motivation for me because I wanted to come home, get my homework done, so that then I could, go home, go play my video games or whatever. So it's important that they have that designated time whenever it is, for your family. But it's important they have that time when they get home that this is the time you do your work, you do your homework. And if they've written everything down in their agenda or planner, they're going to know exactly what they have to do every night, and they're not going to have to guess or try to remember. And lastly, with grades being online, it's just super easy now. I always tell students there's no excuse not to check your grades daily, and that goes for parents too. Just take that minute, log on, you and your students, you and your child every night, and check the grades. Because if you're checking daily, you're going to be able to get on top of something right away until it builds and builds and builds, and then again you have that mountain to climb. Getting into a grade distribution. This is the same grading scale that the entire Volusia County Schools uses. There's two categories of grades. There's summative assignments, and then there's formative. And the difference basically is that summatives are the larger, kind of like, think of a test or a project or an essay, stuff like that. They're kind of the larger assignments, and they count for 60% of a grade. And then the smaller assignments are formatives. If you want to think of, say, like a classwork assignment, a bell work assignment, kind of those daily things that they do every day, those are formative assignments, and those are 40% of the student's grade. It's also important to remember that there is an EOC exam. That stands for end of course exam. That's just the fancy term they use now for final exams. There is going to be a final exam, or EOC, at the end of the year, and that will be 10% of the student's fourth quarter grade. So I mentioned that because don't throw stuff. I don't want students to throw things out at the end. We had a chapter 3 test today, so now I can go ahead and throw all that stuff out. It's like, well, wait a minute. There's going to be a final exam. You may want to keep that work to review it. But of course, at the end of each unit, they could take that work out of their binder and keep it at home. They don't need it in class anymore, but at the end of the year, they will need it to review for their final exam. Okay, so we're almost at the end of the presentation. I know we do have some students working from home right now, and so really kind of the same things apply to those students at home. Stay organized, have a folder, on your computer for each class, and then even subfolders in them for like each unit or each chapter, whatever your teacher is doing, so that you can keep your work in there. If you just are saving it all over and stuff like that, you're not going to find it. So kind of the same things hold true. All of my assignments are under files and teams, so that's where the students can access them. I have a folder for each unit. So for example, right now in 6th grade world history, we're on unit 3, Mesopotamia. So the students click on that folder, in files and Teams, and then all the assignments that they have to do are in there. And so the assignments are PDFs, so there's a few ways that students can complete them. They can print them out, write the answers on the actual paper, take a picture of it and email it to me, or I think the easier way is just to open up an Office 365 Word document in vPortal, type your answers on there, and then in the upper right corner there's a share button, and they can just start typing my name, D-A-L-I-A, and then my name will pop up that'll say Dalia, Michael. They just click on my name and it automatically shares the assignment with me. So that's kind of, I think, the easier one. But again, if they want to print it out and write it or handwrite it, although that gets real dicey because you got to make sure it's real neat and the pictures go good quality, but they can attach a picture and email me the assignment that way as well. But again, you know, all the stuff that I talked about is the same thing for the students at home. You know, they have to log on, you know, on time for each class. Same thing if they log on late, they're going to be marked tardy. Just they're kind of the same things apply to the students at home as the stuff that I just went over for the students at school. So lastly, if you have any questions, just shoot me an email and I will get right back to you. And I'm really excited. You know, I love teaching social studies, so it's going to be a great year. All right, that's it. Mr. Dalia is out.